Guys, well, we are back in the building and we are here to talk about Married to Medicine Season 9 Reunion Part 3. And I have got to tell you right off the top that it was disappointing. There were a lot of disappointing things about last night's reunion, but let me just start off with the basics, the obvious first, okay? One of the biggest things that I had an issue with last night was the sudden time change for the episode. As you guys can see, last night, Carlos King and Dr. Heavenly were set to go live at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right as the episode was going off. So, if there had been the right time slot, we would have gotten the Married to Medicine recap for part 3 of the reunion right at 10 p.m. Now, I don't know whether or not they went live at 10 p.m. because I was too busy watching the actual episode at 10 p.m. So I had to catch their live, or at least a small portion of it, afterwards. And after watching Watch What Happens Live, and I didn't get a chance to watch all of it because I had to go to sleep, right? So, because by that point in time, it was late. And y'all know I'd be trying to go to bed early, or early-ish. Anyway, so the time was moved back for Married to Medicine from 9 to 10 to make way for Family Karma. Now, I did hear Dr. Heavenly say in the episode with her and Carlos on her YouTube channel that they were only informed of this change last minute, and it just didn't really seem to make any sense. It didn't make any sense to me either. Now, the only thing that I can figure is that they were trying to possibly engage viewers who watch Potomac and who watch Married to Medicine by sandwiching in Family Karma, thus introducing Family Karma to a potentially new demographic or a potentially new audience. But I just think that in doing so, I think that it was an utter and complete failure, because I just feel like that wasn't the thing to do last night. We were full steam ahead, and then there was just this giant break because I don't watch Family Karma, and it's no shade to the Family Karma cast. I just haven't watched it. Last night wasn't the night where I needed to be watching it because I'm already recapping 2 shows. So it was just too much. Okay. Actually, 3 shows, because I'm actually 4 shows, because my intentions were to watch Potomac, Married to Medicine, Carlos King, and Dr. Heavenly, and then go back and watch What Happens Live because Dr. Wendy was going to be on the show. So that was my first fail for the night for Married to Medicine. The second fail for the Married to Medicine reunion was that we didn't even get, unless I missed it, and you guys got to tell me, did I blink? Did I fall asleep? Did I step out of the room? Did I go grab a meal? Did I go grab a beverage when they showed the altercation betwixt Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Contessa outside in the trailers? Did I miss that, or was that only a special feature for the trailer of the reunion? Because they led that reunion trailer with that altercation. So you would think that within the episodes, we would get to see it. Now, unless I'm mistaken, they didn't even seem to reference it. Again, I could have blinked. I could have walked out of the room. I could have fell asleep randomly, okay? But I don't feel like I did. So I got to take away some major points from this particular episode as a whole, because this one has to suffer, because this is where we are at this point. I couldn't make it suffer last week because I thought that we were going to get the preview this week. We didn't even get that. There was so much of this that wasn't shown. I just felt like, what did they do? They chopped this thing up like chop suey and left us with barely scraps for this ending part of the reunion. I'm being faux real, okay? Because my expectations were not met, especially for a season that was as good as it was. How are you going to cut out this dramatic altercation that occurs outside before the reunion even starts and then not even touch on it like it never existed? That doesn't make any sense to me. If you did not want to show this, then you should not have put it in the trailer. If you did not want to talk about it, then you should not have put it in the trailer. I have a big problem with that, because to me, it's either a lapse in the editing, the QA, or the network had a change of heart, in which I just don't understand. Somebody let me know what the case may be, because clearly it was okay to show it in the preview, but it wasn't okay to show it in the episodes. Like, how does that work? And did they think that nobody would notice? Like, that's weird to me. So I don't know what's going on with the Married to Medicine, and in terms of how the show was given to us, it just didn't make any sense to me. Okay. Now, for that matter, I'm gonna have to give this episode a 7. Okay, I'm gonna give it a 7. I'm gonna give it a 7 because I had an expectation. It was not met. They didn't switched it and flipped up the time on me at the last minute. I did not know. And then, on top of that, the whole ending section was really about inter like couple relations and stuff like that. The things that the people are doing between the sheets. That ain't interesting to me. Okay, it ain't interesting to me. I would probably wager that it ain't interesting to a majority of the audience, but for some reason, they really seem to find this subject very funny, amusing, and to me, at this point in time, it feels played out, because these women and these husbands are so much more than the intimate relations that they seem to keep trying to force feed us down our throats. Now, again, maybe there are some couples out there or some people that watch this show that get something from it. I'm just letting you know that I do not. And I happen to tune out every time. Thus, I tuned out for at least the last 15 minutes of this reunion, because I realized that my expectation of seeing whatever happened with this altercation with Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Contessa was never going to be shown. Let's get into the episode. We start off with the guys. Did Kieran already know that the moving situation was a sore spot for, Dr. Eugene? Kieran thought he was joking. It wasn't so serious. Andy asked if Simone and Cecil had done it, would Eugene still be upset? And he would. He felt like it was wrong for Kieran to double down because he knew that it upset him. So this is what I thought was interesting, though. Curtis jumps in, and I felt like he had been waiting for this moment, because he remembers Eugene shading him during the whole cheating scandal with Dr. Jackie, and then Eugene even having to apologize. But Eugene felt like, oh, in this situation, it was just over the top for Kieran. But Curtis feels like, well, his situation was much more sensitive because it was about cheating, and that's what made that situation worse for Eugene. And what Kieran did was relatively benign in comparison to Eugene joking and cackling about Curtis after the cheating thing had broken out. So at that point, Eugene ain't got nothing to say. And I'm like, well, actually, Curtis makes a very good point. Now, Curtis, you did find yourself in some trouble, but you are right about this whole situation. And I just was like, Eugene, where's the fire? Where's the feedback? Where is the anger and the angst towards Curtis? Because I don't see you giving none in his direction. So I just thought that was very interesting. Andy asked him about Toya feeling alone and what he's not giving her. He thinks the last 2 years were difficult, and it tears him up to see her cry, which I do believe. Nobody wants to see. I don't want to see nobody cry, to be quite honest with you, because I'm a Cancer, and so I wheeze sensitive. Okay. So then they get into this P shot. Curtis is planning on taking the P shot. Okay. The P shot is done multiple times in the man's clunker, and it makes the clunker go from this to this. Okay. Allegedly. I don't know. Let me put the alleged badge up here. I mean, that's just what the folks is saying. So if you're interested in the P shot, apparently it's about $2,500 for the O shot. So I would imagine it's about $2,500 for the P shot. But if it's gonna take you from this to this, from zero to hero, then I say it's probably worth it. Okay. Next. We get into Dr. Skye and his music. I'm gonna have to get out my shades for this one because I'm about to be shady. Dr. Scott, I do not know if I feel like a rap career is in your future. The lyrics was something about temptation, not confusing flirting and all kinds of other things, and it just sounded real crazy. I mean, it wasn't giving Drake. So I just have to say it's a no for me. But good work at the attempts at a musical career. And to be quite honest, if this was for your wife and if you was willing to do this on the national television, then I have to tell you that I am all the way here for those types of shenanigans. I would just happen to say, I don't know who you work with on the song, but I would say maybe to call Candy next time you want to hit. Okay, the end. All right. Um, the men join the women. All right. We get into the relationships of it all, and they just the questions that come up about having multiple women. Are they open to having extra men come into the room? I don't know. All I know is that Toya gets called to the carpet for saying she didn't know that Eugene's um clunker was gonna get any bigger. Now, what I have to say is let's put this all into perspective. Toya, if you feel like you didn't know that the clunker was gonna get bigger, why don't you take your Bravo paycheck or one of them paychecks that you receiving on a monthly that you showed us those receipts for, and then you take him over to Dr. Jackie's. Well, maybe not to Dr. Jackie's. I was about to say maybe to Dr. Scott's because he seemed to know more about it. So maybe take him over to Dr. Scott's, let them put the 6 shots up in the clunker, and that way you don't have the problem that you just basically said that you had, where you didn't know it wasn't never going to get no bigger. Because what we have learned from Dr. Jackie and from Dr. Scott is there is relief for your ailments, Toya. There is relief here. You can take whomever from zero to hero simply by taking them over to one of your friends and getting the shot. Okay, I feel like I'm just over here solving so many problems for people, and they need to pay me. Okay. So anyway, she's trying to clear it up, that, oh, I didn't mean it like that. Girl, how did you mean it? And why did you say it? On what planet would you think that it would be okay to embarrass your husband like that? Even though you might not have been saying directly, oh, I want it to be bigger. I wish it was bigger. You really are kind of saying, I wish it was bigger. I just felt like, girl, like, okay, there's no way you're going to be able to get out of this one. However, this is also what makes Toya a good reality TV personality, because she is so unfiltered. She knows not what she says. And you have to respect that on a reality TV show, because she is not censoring herself. And I have to say that I love it. Do I think she should do it? I mean, probably not, because it is embarrassing to him. But at the end of the day, the deed is done. Okay. We get into whether or not Eugene has a humiliation kink for the way that Toya seems to always embarrass him on the national TV. He claims he's not embarrassed. Andy said, Quad, you said Eugene will laugh everything off to save face, but it really hurts inside. And Quad says, well, what they have in their household is their household, but any person who would endure that could possibly be hurt. He's always cleaning up for Toya, and putting down the pine soil on aisle 10 to clean up all her stuff. And Eugene says, well, Quad, your jokes were worse. And Quad says, of course you're going to say that. But she meant what she said when she called him Eugene. Okay, Quad said that they divorced shamed her with those t-shirts, saying she needs some snuggies for them cold nights that she's gonna be shivering alone up in that big house. Okay, and Eugene screams, well, what do you got against us? And Quad says, I have nothing against you. Eugene says, well, then quit talking about us. And Quad says, then shut your mouth about me. Okay. That was a good dynamic. I felt like that was probably one of the highlights. Actually, it wasn't. So then Andy wants to know what Quad tweeted. Quad knows what she tweeted. Okay. Quad. I was like, oh, Quad. Okay. I don't think Andy knew what was coming. Okay. Andy did not know what was coming between Quad and Dr. Heavenly getting at Andy last night. I was like, oh my. Okay. Andy's just like, I just wanted to read the question to the audience. Quad is like, well, read it to the people then. Okay. And that Andy does. Now, this is a scathing tweet about Eugene, okay? And after which Eugene calls her miserable. Toya told him not to respond and to let her handle it. And she says that Quad can't keep a man. All right. We get into Dr. Damon telling Dr. Contessa and Heavenly that their issues were BS. Damon explains that he had an issue. If he had an issue with the other man, they would just hash it out. Toya asks, well, what if they do it again and again and again? Dr. Damon says he doesn't want to argue with women. If he says something to Dr. Contessa that was out of the way, he apologizes, but he's going to go to the men. Dr. Contessa is questioning why Dr. Damon wouldn't have called her, which I thought was wild, wouldn't have called her if he was interested in resolving the issues between Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Contessa. And I'm like, why would he call you? Okay. I mean, I guess if anybody he could call Dr. Scott, because that would seem more like what should happen or whatever. But Dr. Scott could be as well calling Dr. Damon as well. So the shoe could have worked. I mean, it worked both ways. All right. And Dr. Heavenly's like, and Dr. Damon's like, I wouldn't do that. Why I'm not calling you like that. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Heavenly says she called Dr. Contessa without the cameras to try to resolve it. And Dr. Contessa acknowledges it. But Dr. Heavenly feels like every time she would, apologize, Dr. Contessa would then go back and tell Quad and talk ish about her. And Quad's like, now, wait a minute. How I get in it? Okay. What I say? What I do? So Karen hops in that Dr. Damon was actually not done talking. And so Dr. Damon steps in and says, you guys never know what's in my head because you never let me finish talking. And Dr. Contessa is like, she's kind of getting about it with him. And she's like, I don't really understand your point. His point is that he's a chill, laid back man and he's not going to change. But if the question is, why doesn't he step in to do anything to resolve the issues? It's the women who don't let him talk. And he's not going to go back and forth with a woman. Okay, Dr. Contessa. And he's only going to handle ish with another man. So then we get back into the question at hand. What did Quad tell Dr. Heavenly about what Dr. Contessa said? So it was apparently that Dr. Contessa didn't have any remorse for the way the intervention went because she felt like Dr. Heavenly does worse to them. Quad then asked Dr. Heavenly, so what else is going on? All right. So Dr. Heavenly mentions that after the panorama testing, Quad told Dr. Heavenly everything that Dr. Heavenly had ever told Dr. Contessa. Okay. And a lot of it was taken out of context. So I'm assuming Dr. Contessa, she's saying Dr. Contessa told Quad things that Dr. Heavenly and her had talked about in confidence. Okay. Dr. Contessa's like, what? Quad says, well, apparently that it was Heavenly who started the rumor about Quad sleeping with the contractor. And Dr. Contessa points out, well, that was on TV. And they do show a flashback with Anila and Dr. Heavenly talking about that. So Dr. Scott wants to say something. He felt like Dr. Heavenly kicked him when he was down. So Dr. Heavenly apologizes, but she says she relates to Scott more than she does to Dr. Contessa because he's a Scorpio. And she says they say stuff to your face and they don't do sneak attacks. So Dr. Damon is telling Dr. Heavenly to stop talking. This is a clip from after the dinner party at Dr. Simone's house when Dr. Contessa and Dr. Heavenly got into it, all right? And so he said he came into the event frustrated from work. So then they get into a discussion of whether or not it was too soon to have Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Contessa in the same space. And so soon after things had gone down in Vegas, and so soon after Heavenly had been dealing with, stuff with her mom, all right? So they get into what the ladies can do to have better relationships. And Dr. Damon says they should have real one-on-one conversations with each other. Quad says, ask Dr. Damon, says, what do you do when they keep doing the same things? I know you don't watch, but do you really know what's going on up there in that closet, referring to Dr. Heavenly, on her YouTube channel. She says, Heavenly is dragging us. Heavenly says they dragging each other on the show and on Twitter. What's the difference with what I do on YouTube? I was like, well, I mean, okay. Quad wants to know what happens when Dr. Damon goes to her and has conversations with her. And Dr. Heavenly says, 2 wrongs don't make a right, girl. I've already apologized to you. We good, Quad. Thank you. Don't talk to Dr. Damon. Address me. Out of respect for me, don't ask him anything. And so they kind of really get into it and I'm like, is this real? Because I'm like, they really getting into it and battling back and forth, sitting right beside each other, getting right with each other. Okay, they getting with each other like, I mean, bam. I was like, yo, like, this is like, it was really like 2 sisters, like really, really like kind of scrapping and going at it. So Andy says, well, I actually want to know the answer to that question. And Dr. Heavenly's like, well, he ain't going to answer it for you either. I was like, oh. Yo, Quad and Dr. Heavenly was not playing with Andy last night, okay? But Dr. Damon wants to answer because he wants to be able to speak for himself. And he says, you know, Dr. Damon says we all have homework to do. And Quad and Heavenly, then, they kind of get into it some more. And then it's time for Married to Medicine After Dark. At which point I promptly checked out and I started checking my phone. Because at this point I realized we weren't going to get nothing about that altercation in the trailers. And so I just kind of realized that this whole thing was a wash. And we already had gotten to the most interesting parts of the reunion. So that was that on that. And we're done. We're done. They're done. They're done. They're done. Okay. And so now what do? We just sitting left here with so many questions and no answers. I guess we got to wait till next season, which we probably won't get till sometime late next year, because I feel like they don't really even prioritize this show like they should. Okay. If it was me, we would be filming today. All right. Today. I want the freshness. I want the frustrations. I want it all. Give it to me now. All right. That's my thought on this season of Married to Medicine. You guys let me know what your thoughts were down in the comment section down below. And with that, I will catch you guys in the next video.